I just realized that I gave myself 10 days to make my mother a sweater. Oh well. Hi friends, my name is Amanda. This is my channel AceKreates, and I am your Tunisian crochet bestie. Welcome to another podcast. This is the second podcast, like full podcast, like real podcast of the year. I did do a make nine and winter makes last week, and it didn't really do any project updates, so definitely check that out. But we're back with like a normal structured podcasts, and there's lots to catch you up on. And so I've got my notebook, and you should grab a project and something nice and cozy and warm to drink because it is freezing. It was 40 some odd, like 40 degrees when I woke up here in LA today. And so I am nice and cozy. I had a hat on earlier too, but I figured I shouldn't film in that. So here I am in my cozy cowl. This is a Violet Loops design. This is the full fade cowl I tested for her. And this is the Municardi, which is a great oversized DK weight Tunisian crochet cardigan. And since it's made with simple stitches, it's pretty easy and mindless to do. So let's get our notes ready and get started with the video. The first project to update you on and the first finished object of the video is my Tolsta tee. This is my Tolsta tee. It's a little wrinkly because I've actually worn it several times since I finished it probably about not quite 2 weeks ago, but almost 2 weeks ago. And so it's a little wrinkly because I have worn it several times and I am in love with it. It was very much a slog, and I'll go into that a little bit more, but I'm really pleased with the finished product. So let's get into the details of the Tolsta tee. The Tolsta tee is a top-down raglan style knitted tee by Rebecca Clow. I think I've been saying her name wrong. So the Tulsa tee is a pattern by Rebecca Clow, and the yarn that I'm using for this is Explore Knits and Fiber Spindrift. It's like this beautiful minty green, and I used just over 3 skeins. Like I used 2 skeins plus 5 grams of another skein. And I'm really mad that I had to break into that skein, but there was like no way around it. A couple things could have changed to make that so I used the 2 skeins because I should have had enough yarn based on her estimates. But where I messed up was my gauge. So you use 3.5 millimeter needles for the body and 2.75 millimeter needles for the ribbing. It's just 1 by 1 ribbing and it's stockinette through here. And then you have just a normal kind of what I would call normal increases here as your raglan increase. The modifications that I made were very minor. I added 2 rows after the pattern had called for without increasing because I was a little unsure of uh, the shape and like my bust. And so I added 2 rows that weren't increased rows. And then I split for sleeves at that point, which I'm glad I did. I think it honestly probably wouldn't have made a difference in the end by doing that, but I did it. And then I added a couple extra stitches. I don't know the exact. I was not good about writing that note. I think I added maybe either 2 or 4 stitches underneath the underarm to give myself just a little bit more room here. I'm glad I did that as well. But I'm not because that probably bought me an extra little bit on each side. The pattern is actually written for it's a size large, a 43.25-inch bust. So I ended up getting a 42-inch bust, which is either like 0 inches of positive ease or it's like 1 inch of negative ease because my bust does fluctuate a little bit. So I generally I'm comfortable with anything in a 42 or 43 inch. I tend to want something with not a lot of positive ease, as I've kind of talked about the kind of my journey with ease over my time of making. And so I ended up with probably just about 0 inches of negative ease, um, or no ease at all. I don't know how do you say that. So I ended up with 0 inches of ease with my 42-inch bust. I ended up getting 13 and a quarter inches here, and 9 inches from here to the bottom of my ribbing. So my stitch gauge was fine. I actually ended up with 24 stitches. So the gauge for the pattern is 24 stitches by 32 rows, but I ended up with 24 stitches by 37 rows. So I definitely used more yarn than I needed to, but I don't know if I had sized a different needle, had that would have messed with my stitch gauge. So I'm usually technically always fine with that, except in these instances where you have to break into a new skein. I actually may not have, but I had some waste yarn from it, from like knots and stuff when I was skeining it, so that could have been my problem. Regardless, I had the 37 rows in 4 inches instead of 32. So I think when I make this again, because I do want to make it because it's a pretty easy make and it's mindless, I will try wooden needles because I do have that Like set that I won in a giveaway at my local yarn store. And so when I make this again, I think I'm going to try um, wooden needles instead of metal needles. I do like metal needles, but I want to see if that what that does to the row gauge and if that gets me more on point with yarn usage, because then this becomes a two skein project. I don't really like one by one ribbing. It looks sloppy, at least the way I do it. It's very sloppy and super inconsistent, especially in smaller diameter circumference knitting when I have to use either magic loop or like 9 inch circulars. I don't really like it. Um, so I think that I might try to do something different again when I make this again. I might try half twisted rib like you do in the straight pipe. So I might try that if I do that again. I just like the look of it better. It looks super polished. I might also try it turned inside out because my half twisted rib inside out looks really amazing. It's what I would want my one by one ribbing to look like. So if you have any tips on what type of ribbing I should use in the future or how I could clean up my one ribbing, I would really appreciate it. So I definitely am going to make this again, not sure when, but it's a great kind of two skein stash buster for my random two skeins in my stash. So pretty happy with that. And this will get a lot of wear. I'll also probably try making it in a different kind of blend of yarn. Not this is superwash. Um, Whereas I'll probably try it in like an alpaca blend or alpaca silk or a silk blend, because I really would love to be able to wear these like all year round. I mean, I can wear this all year round. It's not a very like warm piece, but I'd love a blended Tolsta tee. So that's my Tolsta tee by Rebecca Clow. My next finished project, and I don't have it with me, is because I gifted it, is my Tunisian crochet baby blanket that I self-drafted. And I'm going to be doing a video tutorial for it. I'm probably not going to make a huge blanket. I'm going to make like a mini version of it. Um, but that will be coming in the next few weeks. I'm still working on my setup, but I used I'll have video and clips here for you or on screen. I used Lion Brand Color Theory yarn, which is 100% acrylic yarn. I use various colorways. I tried to like do like a monochromatic look with the colorways. So I took say like a color blue, and I took two versions of the blue, like a lighter and a darker color. So I used the colorways Ivory, which is the white. I used the colorway Tourmaline, which is like a seafoamy green. Stonewash, which is a darker blue, jean blue. Um, I used the colorway Amethyst, which is the darker purple. I used Provence, which is the lighter purple. I used Himalayan Salt, which is the lighter pinky orange. And then I used the colorway Canyon, which is that orangey clay red in it. Really wanted something that was really colorful and playful. And so that's kind of the take I was playing on it. So it's constructed primarily with the Tunisian knit stitch, with some detailing on the edges so you get a more even edge on both sides, along with a honeycomb border on the bottom and the top of the blanket. So I ended up doing something closer to like a crib size. So it ended up being like 30 to 33 inches tall by about 20 to 22 inches wide. I didn't do a final measurement, but that's just like roughly based on the height of the stripes. It was a pretty quick make. I actually, because I had to tear that out so many times, I ended up making the final version of it in less than a week. Um, and so, I mean, it was the only thing I worked on in a week's time. But it is made with worsted weight yarn and an 8 millimeter hook, so it works up pretty fast that way. And I didn't use all of the yarn of those skeins. So each skein comes with like 240-ish yarn, 240-ish yards in a skein. And so I didn't end up using, I probably only ended up using like 2/3 of the yarn of each skein. And so I'll probably, that's what I'm going to make the tutorial with. I'm going to use the scraps. And I'm probably, like I said, I'm going to use like I'm going to make a mini version of it because I think I'm going to do, when I do these tutorials, I'm going to do like a 12 by 12 swatch essentially, and then make a blanket by the time I'm done doing tutorials and things like that. So I think that will be fun. So that is my Tunisian crochet baby blanket that I self-drafted. So the next project that I'm just gonna kind of glaze over because I've made it before. I made another boho planter. I'll put a picture up. It's a quick make for my husband. I worked on since I finished. My goal was to finish 3 whips before I could start a new project in January. So I did that. With the Tolsta tea, I had finished 3 whips in January, and so I quickly made a plant hanger for him so that he could complete uh well, he still needs a couple more, but I made one more to get his plant holder dreams and another one up. So the only thing that is, I know what the answer is the yarn has stretched from the other two in over a month. And so it looks like they're not even though like, so the chaining that I did to hang it was 50 chains for all of them. But because the others have been hanging for so much longer, they've stretched a little bit. And so I've told him to just like let them stretch a little and they'll probably even out. So we'll see. So the next thing we're gonna do is whips, and I actually don't have a lot of whips right now to talk with you. I mean, I have whips, but active whips that I've like either resurfaced and brought in or have been consistently working on. Um, because I finished 3 whips that I brought into the new year, that means I only have 5 more whips to finish this year from the whips that I brought in. And so one of those, and also a make 9, is my stripe hype. And I'm almost there. Like I really wanted to be done so that I could show you guys, but I feel like this needs to be blocked before I fully show you the finished, piece. but this is my stripe pipe. This is a pattern by Veronika Lindberg, Kotova Kika, and it is a drop shoulder stockinette oversized sweater. It's got these gorgeous stripes throughout. So there's 5 colored stripes throughout in sections, and then offset by a like a main color, like a creamy main color. So I'm almost there. I'm actually at the point on my second sleeve. I probably have, you might hear the cat, but I probably have about 10 more rows on this sleeve. And then this is how much yarn I have left. So I will definitely finish the arm and then I will add hopefully another inch of the body. Um, but because the body is a larger circumference, it's going to use more yarn. So hopefully I'll have enough to add the 1 inch of the body ribbing that still needs to be done. So I had kind of I finished a ball of yarn, and rather than keeping on going, and I wanted to make sure that I had enough of the yarn to do both sleeves and the neck. And so since we last joined, that's what I did. I mean, I've done all that, but we were bound off, um, almost bound off on this. I had done the colorway here and I had left yarn. I did it calls for the Italian bind off. Fun fact, I actually like that. It was the first time I've done it, and I like that over any of the other stretchy bind offs that I've done. So that will probably be when I can do that bind off, that will probably be my go-to bind off. Um, and then I did the neckline, um, and I bound that off with the Italian bind off. And then I have stitched and done the whole sleeve, um, and am working on the ribbing. And so this is since the last full podcast episode. I did give a little bit of an update on it when I did my Make 9 because this is one of my Make 9s. I wanted to make my Make Nines a little bit more accessible to me, and I brought some whips into my Make Nine. Although one of the whips is now no longer going to be a whip, I'm going to frog it and start all over. So I'm really happy with the progress of the stripe hype, and I'm hopeful that I can maybe get it done tonight. I'm not going to my stitch night, but I think maybe if I like once the kiddo goes to bed, I can get some steady progress on it because I think once I'm done filming here, I will be working on the sleeve and trying to get the sleeve bound off. And then tonight on the body. So I'm still hopeful that I'll get it done today in January 31. This little guy does not like being locked out, and all the doors are shut right now. So he's come to visit. But it's okay if I don't and I finish it this weekend sometime. But I am anxious, so anxious to cast on another project. And I've actually been swatching and trying to cast on, but it has failed. And so let's talk about some of those swatches that I have been working on. And I don't have all of them, um, because I've either like ripped them out to salvage the yarn, or I just forgot to grab it. He just wants attention, that's all. Yeah, there you go, buddy. Okay, so I have my swatches, and this isn't all the swatching I've done. I just, especially of this yarn, I've like torn it back out and re-swatched and torn it back out and re-swatched. So let's talk about my next two cast-ons, which are both Tunisian crochet, and I'll show you the swatches and we'll talk about them. So my next cast on is the Hearthside Raglan by Lindsey from Just the Worsted. It's a pattern test for her. It's a really long pattern test window. We probably had the pattern for just under a month right now, and so I'm a little bit behind, but I've wanted to like really make sure I'm meeting gauge because it is a pattern test, and I'm getting a little frustrated with my my swatching. Originally, I was going to use this DK weight yarn from Royal Bee, the Royal Bee Company, and it's the colorway Pink Frosted Donut, and it's 100% superwash merino. It's a 240 yards in a skein, and I was struggling hardcore to meet gauge. This is still my first swatch. The pattern calls for a 6 millimeter hook, and I need to get 14 stitches in my pattern. I'm getting probably closer to 17 stitches with the 6 millimeter. So I then tried with an 8 millimeter. For some reason, I'm still getting like 15 stitches. Um, and it's a pattern that you can use a DK weight or a DK weight and a mohair. And so most people are, I think, are doing the DK and mohair, but I just knew, or a lacy suri or something like that. I just knew that that wouldn't get a lot of wear in my wardrobe, and that's why I really wanted to stick to the DK. And I think that's why I might be struggling, although she used a lighter DK. Um, so my regular DK, which this I would call is at 240 yards. Then I tried, so I swatched this with a 6 millimeter. I swatched it with an 8 millimeter, still not meeting gauge. Actually switched yarns, and I'm going to use the yarn that I was going to use for my mom's sweater. I went a different route for her because my yarn rules say I could buy yarn for gifts. So I actually bought some Cascade that I will show in a later podcast once I get to Michigan, because that's a sweater that I'm going to cast on and cast off in Michigan. But so I'm actually going to use the yarn that I was going to use for hers, the Baliora Fibers Merino DK, because it's a little bit of a heavier DK. It's 218 yards in a skein, and this is 240. And I'm still like, I'm still struggling. I'm still struggling. I made two swatches with it, one with the 8 millimeter metal hook and one with the 6.5 millimeter um, wooden hook, and I got the same gauge for both of those. So, I mean, that was a great swatching lesson for me. Um, but I'm still at the 15 stitches with the 8 millimeter metal or 6.5 millimeter wood. I prefer the metal just because it's an easier work for me. So I think I'm going to stick with the 8 millimeter uh, metal hook and just block it a little bit more aggressively. Like I'm at like just at 15 stitches by I think it's 16. No, I'm supposed to be at 16 rows. So I'm supposed to be 14, 16, and I'm at 15, 16 or 15, 17. So I think if I just block it a little bit more um, aggressively, I should be fine. And so I'm going to proceed with that. But this is the yarn worked up. This yarn is going to have to be alternated. My skeins are going to have to alternate every row or every other row. The last time I worked with her yarn, back in this sweater, I have huge variations in that yarn. In fact, one of those skeins, the one that I used to start the back panel, I really should have just ripped it out, set that yarn aside maybe for the like cuff or ribbing and detailing and done it that way instead of using it because it's very like ombre-ish effects in the back. So I'm a little scarred from the yarn. I love the yarn and how it feels, but I'm going to make sure that I alternate skeins, which will be a little bit more difficult, especially once I get in the round. But I'm going to do it. Actually, it might not be that difficult because you use one skein for the return pass and one skein for the forward pass. But I'm going to have to be very mindful about when I get into the round, especially about the yarn. So, um, I've just had a lot of swatch drama and lately, and so that's what I've changed the yarn that I'm going to use. I've swatched probably 10 times for this sweater. Um, so I'm hopeful that as I get working, that my gauge is okay. Um, but we'll see. I might switch to a wooden hook at some point to be more consistent in my gauge and that would explain why when I did the Lania wrap, why I had such a tight gauge because I used the metal hook. I've usually not had this kind of problem meeting gauge before, but because I've been using these metal hooks more recently, that might explain why. So pivoting. But I have 8 skeins of this, so I was a little worried that I was not going to have enough because it is a smaller yardage. But because I do have an eighth skein, I should be good to go. And it'll actually good to like not have just another pink sweater in my, which I love pink sweaters, don't get me wrong, but I'm, now I'm going to do something else. So that's my swatching for my Hearthside Raglan. The next thing that I've swatched for is another test. It's a shorter window, but I think this will work up really fast. They'll both work up pretty fast, but this one's a little bit more straightforward because it's not done in the round or anything. It's just 2 panels seamed together. So this is a unnamed Tunisian tank by Ashley Rivas, Tiny Couch Crochet on Instagram, and she's writing a book. And I've tested one of her patterns before. I've made 2 of her patterns before, and I have actually no, I made one of her patterns. I tested another pattern for her, and so this is my third time making something of hers. She's writing a book that should be out late this year. And I saw this tank top and I'm like, yes, I need another tank top in my wardrobe. And so it's made with DK weight yarn and it's very structured. So first she made it with like a cashmere um, wool blend. So I was like, great, I have 3 skeins of this Sorella Cash Decay. Um, but there's like 231 yards in a skein, which literally, based on her current estimates, puts me at with 3. I would be playing yard chicken because it would put me at 3. Um, it would put me at like 690 yards, which is what the pattern is, and I would have 693 yards available to me. I did swatch with it, and that's what I have here. Um, but I talked to Ashley a little bit about it. I weighed it. She did some calculations, and she's coming up with like closer to like I think 750, but well over 700 of yarn. And I only have 3 of this. Which is a bummer because I really wanted to use this and I really wanted a 3 skein project. I'm making size large, which should give me like a 40-inch bust. It's supposed to have negative ease. Um, so I'm a little disappointed I can't use this because I'm close to gauge. I'm at 20. So the gauge is supposed to be 22 stitches by 18 rows, and I'm at 23 stitches by 18 rows. Again, I did pin block it, but I didn't like aggressively try to get gauge. So I think once this would have been okay. But it's already a little bit of a cropped top. So I could have like taken back some like a half an inch or so on the body to buy myself more yarn. But it's already the bit of a cropped top as it is. It's not going to show, it's just going to be like right at like high-waisted jeans. So I didn't want to chance it. I still might chance it in the future once it's out of testing, and make it because I just really like this purple. And so like a dusty dirty purple, and I really like that. So I think that this might be one in the future when I can play Yarn Chicken and I can play a little bit around once I see how the final piece kind of works up and the fit is, because I really want to make sure I'm following pattern. So I have 4 skeins of a fuzzy peach fiber. Um, in the colorway Amalfi, and this is her Silk DK blend. So like, look at that drape. Like, it's so great. Even with a 4 millimeter needle. So this pattern calls for a 4 millimeter needle. Um, and it's going to be a very structured DK weight top because most DK anything that I do is generally like a 6.5 or six and a half millimeter Tunisian crochet hook. And this is a 4. And Ashley did this also with another one of her tank tops that I had made before, the August Tunisian tank. I think that was a 4.5 millimeter hook. And so it's about the structure and getting these kind of like fine details. So like, look at that. That's really great. So again, with the 4 millimeter, I ended up with 23 stitches by 18 rows for the 4 inch gauge. I didn't aggressively block. So I'm toying with moving forward and being okay with that and just blocking a little bit more or going up to a 4.5 millimeter. Um, I'm a little worried about with going up with a half a hook because then I think my gauge is just gonna be my row gauge is gonna be off. And so because it's not even a full stitch that I'm off, it's like half a stitch. Um, and so that's what I think I'm gonna do. I'm just gonna block this a little bit more aggressively to get to gauge to get that to 22 stitches by 18 rows. So this is Fuzzy Peach Fibers, Silk Decay in the colorway Amalfi, which is this gorgeous blue. It does, I remember seeing this yarn when she posted it. It is a lot lighter on the silk blend. It's much more vibrant on any of the others. But I'm still happy. I love silk blend yarn. I have several tops in it. I've got a tank top, a Tunisian tank top. I've got a was it a Tunisian? No, it was like a regular crocheted top from Tony Lipsy in it. I'm just a big fan of Silk DK, like dyers that have a Silk DK blend. So these will be my next two cast-ons, which will be awesome to have some blue in my wardrobe. I love blue. I love blue yarn, as you can see. And so it'll maybe this will be my year of blue. Who knows? But yeah, that will be the Hearthside Raglan and an unnamed Tunisian tank from Tiny Couch Crochet and from Lindsey at Just the Worsted. And I'm really excited to get that. I will also then have a third Tunisian, the Indecision sampler sweater that I will cast on in Michigan. So the next podcast episode will still be in California, but I will likely record one in Michigan. Um, because I will be there for just over, I think I'll be there for about 10 days. And so ooh, I just realized that I gave myself 10 days to make my mother a sweater. Oh well, I'll figure it out. So yeah, so I'll have three Tunisian projects coming up, and hopefully done pretty quickly. Like my aim is to get these three done, and cast off. February might be like kind of hard, but I could do it. Um, so yeah, that's what we might do. We might try to get three things, three Tunisian projects, two sweaters, and a tank done in February. I don't know. Let's try it. I don't have any acquisitions today because I am on my yarn ban. But I will have an acquisition for my mom's gift sweater in later this month. I just got her some Cascade 220. So that's what I'm gonna make the sweater out of for her. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you would, I would really appreciate it if you would give this video a thumbs up and consider subscribing to my channel. I am on a journey to get to 1,500 subscribers, And we just passed the 1,000 subscriber mark, so I'm really, really happy with that. And I'm so thankful for the community that we're building here as your Tunisian bestie. And so, the next video, the next podcast, I'm going to do a giveaway. And so, stay tuned for that. So make sure you're subscribed. I won't put all the details here, but the next video we will do a subscriber giveaway. It'll probably be a sock set that I have in my stash. So tune in and get alerted when I upload my next video. So thank you so much for watching, friends. I will see you in the next one. Bye now.